Hello and welcome back to my channel, Discovering Des. My name is Des, and today I'm here with a review of HBO's Lovecraft Country, Episode 3, Holy Ghost. But before we get into that review, I want you to make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, and share this video out if you're feeling fancy. I greatly appreciate the engagement. Engagement helps my channel out in numerous ways, so for everyone who's already here, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, girl, okay? Thank you. Speaking of giving thanks, let's get into this review. So the show opens up with a church scene. Letty is at church. There's a lady shouting. She's shouting down. They're chasing after her at the at the church. It's a beautiful scene all together, the way it's lit. The colors is just such a vibrant scene. We cut to a black screen, which is like your traditional horror movie disclosure. So it shares with us they had 10 people move into a whites only neighborhood. 10 black people moved into a whites only neighborhood. But within the coming weeks, 3 people from that same neighborhood came up missing. So we're left with that. We cut to Letty and Ruby. They are walking down the street in said white neighborhood. We come to learn that Letty has come into some money and she's bought a house in this neighborhood. Granted, it's a little rundown, it's a little rinky-dink, but it's a 3-floor home, has 13 rooms, and it's just like a grand old manor. It's called the Winthrop House. Shout out to Winthrop University. That is my alma mater. So Ruby shares with us that last year when a black couple moved into a whites-only neighborhood, there were riots for weeks, and she worries that they may share that same fate since they've moved into this new house. Letty wants to turn it into a boarding house inspired by her sister, but she wants them to run it together as a safe haven for people of color in that community. We get a lot of background about Letty and Ruby's sister relationship. We see that Letty has had some struggles throughout her life as an adult, so she's been leaning on a lot of her family members, especially her brother and sister, for financial reasons. But she has some issues with actually supporting them in return, whether that's actually showing up for them or paying them back monetarily. So that kind of shows you some of the chemistry that we had seen in the earlier episodes. They're showing off the house. Letty's giving a tour. They show this old elevator. Letty opens the door to show off the elevator to Ruby, but it looks like it was stuck. But then all of a sudden you hear this crashing sound and the elevator shoots down and it almost decapitates Letty. So that was a very, very close call. You can already tell that she's a little shaken up about that occurrence in the house. Then we cut to Hippolyta back at R.I.P. Uncle George's house. You can see that there is a certain level of pain and resentment when she hears music playing. She thinks about her husband. She hears Tick in the kitchen making breakfast with their daughter. She is still grieving. Like, we come to find out it's been, I would say, 3 or 4 weeks since Uncle George's funeral. So it's still pretty fresh and she's still dealing with it in her own way. We see her pull out Uncle George's copy of the novel Dracula. When she pulls it out, she begins to rip pages out of it, page by page. And you could just see that she's so frustrated with life. She just lost her husband. She's now left with a child to raise on her own. She has the business to take care of. And then she has Tick there. And the problem with Tick being there is that he's just starting to get in the way. Tick's a big boy. Tick's a grown boy. He thinks he's doing the right thing by staying around and trying to support Hippolyta and help her out with Dee. But she feels away. She feels away. When we see Hippolyta go into the kitchen, we see that there's a little tension there between her and Tick. Tick even went as far as to submit an edition of the Green Book without her full go-ahead because the people have been calling saying it was due and it was late. But it wasn't even fully edited yet. So that definitely got under her skin. And also knowing how smart Uncle George was, he would have never made a decision like that. So I'm sure that definitely got under her skin. Tick goes back to his dad's apartment. He's pretty much figured out that his time at Hippolyta's, his welcome is worn out. He's good. He's done there. He found his dad in his sleep talking. His dad, there's a bottle there, so we know that his dad had been drinking. And they go on to share that whatever Monstrose was mumbling in his sleep, that was a story that Uncle George had told Tick several times. And one thing that I noted here is that the story relates back to the dream that Atticus was having on the bus. You remember where we had the baseball player hit the monster and it goes into pieces? Well, in Uncle George's story, they are experiencing a riot. So they told that story to Tick, and it's something that's been ingrained in his memory. So I think it's something there about that memory that we're going to keep going back to, because that's him dreaming about it, Tick, and Monstrose, his dad, also dreaming about it. So make sure you keep that in mind. I think that's going to be a little bit important, okay? We find out that they told everyone that Uncle George had been killed by the sheriff, instead of going on and telling them the full story about the
witches and the warlocks and the ceremony and all of that stuff that we saw last episode at Ardham. They just left that out because they're not ready for that.
I don't think I would have been ready for it either. It's a lot. It's a lot. Tick and Monstrose, we see that they do not have the best relationship. They have several heated moments within 3 minutes of hanging out, and I'm not gonna lie, I get it. So Letty and her crew continue to move into the house. She makes some off-color comments about how Ruby gets her attitude from her father. She was very specific. In the meantime, while everyone is moving in, Tick stumbles upon the house. He lets her know that he heard that she hit the numbers. So she might have won the lottery, got a little change broke off.
But we come to learn that Letty has also not seen Tick in 3 weeks since Uncle George's funeral. And again, there's a lot of tension there, still from everything that they experienced in the last episode.
Tick has decided it's time for him to go back to Florida, so he's really coming through to say his goodbyes. Letty lets him know that she's planning a housewarming and that she'd love for him to stay and party with everybody. He isn't feeling too good about that. He's still pretty much bent on going to Florida and just getting out of town altogether. Then all of a sudden we hear this loud honk, a continuous car horn. Somebody's just laying on it. We pan outside. We see that it's the good old boys of the neighborhood. You know who the good old boys are. They are out front, lined up in front of Letty's house. They have bricks laying on the horn. The cops are passing by, just letting Letty's house be disturbed by the neighborhood boys. And then Tick decides it might be best if he hangs around for the next couple weeks or so. We shoot to the next morning. Letty's in bed. She looks a little restless. We see the covers being pulled back
by a ghost arm. And then all of a sudden we see this lady on the side of Letty. She is mutilated, like all of this is hanging.
I don't know. I didn't like that. Letty wakes up from her dream with the covers being snatched off of her and she's stunned. We notice that it's hot. She's sweating. The glass is sweating. And she thinks somebody has messed with her heating system. So she goes down in the basement to fix that. She's then startled by a very loud noise. She finds an extra room that she didn't know about that was hidden under the basement, and then we see some type of trap door with this banging. We jump to Letty's housewarming. The house party is lit. It is lit, okay? Letty is running around hosting. She got on her blue little cocktail dress. People are having a good time. There are people all throughout their house, okay? On floor 1, 2, and the 3. There are people everywhere. Letty's sister Ruby's performance. She's getting the people hype. Everybody seems to be having a good time. Hippolyta has donated a lot of food, since you know how black people do when somebody dies. They bring you food for weeks and weeks and weeks. So she donated a lot of food. Everyone's fed. Everybody's all watered up. Everybody's a little wet. Then we cut to Dee and her little friends. I thought they was about to be playing Spin the Bottle, but them children got a Ouija board. We don't do Ouija boards. I almost fast forwarded through the scene, but I figured it'd be important for my review. But I don't do Ouija boards too fast. The lights begin to flicker after a while. They ask the board, who are they talking to? The thing does a little thing, it's jerking around. And if you follow the letters, you know what it spells? It spells George. So that triggered a little something in her. She cussed them kids out. She flipped the table, and that was it. Because she thought somebody was playing around. Someone might have been playing around with them, but it was not her friends. I'm sure it was a spirit that was in the house. Hippolyta is drawn to a room that has some type of golden planetary model. It's not our solar system, I think. I'm not certain. But it was really interesting, and it really captivated her attention. Tick arrives in his uniform and sees Letty dancing with a guy. A guy comes up to Tick, talking to Tick, pretty much insinuating that Tick is only staying at Letty's house for free because they have an arrangement of some sort. I'm going to leave it at that. So Letty wraps up her dance and she rushes to the bathroom. Her and Tick had locked eyes at one point, so things got a little hot and heavy, okay? So she's getting herself together in the bathroom. She's dabbing her face, trying to cool down a little bit because she was a little hot. She was a little hot, okay? Meanwhile, while she's wiping her face, we see that there's another mutilated person hanging out in the background that she doesn't see. Eventually, she looks up and she sees Tick behind her. Tick storms in the bathroom, slams the door closed, and Tick takes her down. The session is interrupted, or it ended. But she's a little embarrassed because she had a little lady situation going on down there. The party continues. Letty's still in a little melancholy mood. She sees that they have now set across a fire in her yard. And if you know anything about the KKK, that is one of their go-to symbols. The guys post up around the yard. Letty gets her hot sauce out her bag. Shout out to Beyonce. She has her bat, and she takes out car after car after car after car. You see the volume in that hair. Did you see the bounce in the hair? Emmy worthy. Letty is then arrested by the police who arrive. She's questioned about who helped her buy the house. Why did she buy the house? She's treated horribly. They literally throw her around the car that she's in. She comes to find out that 8 black people had been mutilated and found in that lower basement area. Once she gets out of jail, she actually converts that room into a dark room for her photography. She finds these strange lines in all of her pictures, and she sees that there's some type of pattern, so she lays them out on the floor, and it literally turns into a face and animates and rises out of the ground and immediately tells her to get out of my house. So we know that this is going to be a good old haunted house episode, okay? Letty runs around checking pictures to see are there any other clues as to what's going on. Ruby lets us know that there have been countless tenants moving out because of the environment that's been created between the neighbors, all the tension that's going on. They're not really feeling comfortable staying there. Letty slips up and lets Ruby know that the money came from an insurance policy that her mother had. They have a huge disagreement about that because Ruby wasn't included in that insurance policy. We get more on that a little later. We learn that their mother was pretty selfish and she had some issues. It was a pretty tough scene for the ladies. They really went at it, and we see that there's some tension between the sisters, and we're only scratching the surface of what's really going on, because we've talked a lot about their later years, but we've barely touched on their childhood. So I know that's coming.
Montrose runs into Hippolyta. He sees that she has a new copy of Dracula, and he's a little perplexed about that. She lies to him and tells him that she spilled coffee on George's copy, but remember, she was a little angsty, so she was ripping him up.
She then confronts Montrose because she just has a gut feeling that someone's not telling the truth about how George died. She's getting weird vibes from Tick. She's getting weird vibes from Monstrose's story. So something's just not sitting right with her. So then we fast forward to see Tick and Letty at a diner. Letty has came to the conclusion that her house is haunted. One of its former owners was a college professor, but he was fired for doing some experimental treatment.
In Letty's pictures, the ones that she took off the wall, she came to see that there's a warped image of each of the missing persons that were found, the body parts that were found in her home.
So she knows that those ghosts are showing up in her pictures. They decide to have a witch doctor. I'm not sure what else to call her. She comes through to purge the house. They get a little X across their forehead to protect them in goat's blood. They do a little sacrifice. They're having a ceremony to purge the house. Meanwhile, the neighborhood boys, they break into Letty's home while they're doing the ceremony. They're all led astray and murdered in their own way. God bless their souls. While they're doing the ceremony, the pipes burst in the basement, so all of their protection washes away. The witch doctor is then possessed by one of the spirits. I think it's the guy who was doing all the experimentation, his evil spirit. Her eyes go black. She attacks Tick and Letty. Then the spirit is transferred over to Tick. Tick looks like he's about to attack. It's a powerful scene. I suggest you watch it. It's a lot. They are chanting. Letty is trying to call on the ancestors. The ancestors come around. Those are the restless spirits. They're chanting, and they're able to get the spirit out of the house, and the rest are able to go on and rest in actual peace. Letty's being interviewed by the news about her successful boarding house for colored people. They come to find out that 3 of Letty's neighbors have went missing, but she doesn't know anything about that. Lo and behold, those 3 that are missing are the 3 that were killed during the night of the ceremony, and their bodies have been hidden under the house by whatever spirit did it. I don't know. I ain't got nothing to do with that. My name Bennett, and I ain't in it. Tick is watching the street, and he ends up seeing Miss Birthwhite, I think that's her name, with the silver card. The one with the silver card, yes. It looks like she's bought the realtor out. She thanks him for his help, which makes me think that she gave Letty the money. And we come to find out that that's true. She has manipulated the money some way to give it to Letty. They tell the story about Mr. Winthrop. He is one of the founders from the Order of the Dawn, and he might have some of Titus's secret writings and spells hidden within his house. Tick tries to shoot Mrs. Birthwhite, but he is captured by her vulnerability spell, so she is protected, but he is at her will. She basically tells him, you're gonna work with us, but when you're ready, you let me know, and we'll do it my way or your way, but we're gonna do it regardless. They're looking for those pages from Mr. Winthrop's book, the ones that he stole. So We got a lot going on this episode, okay? That brings us to the end of our review for today. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. As always, it's been fun. Y'all have a great day, and I'll see you next time.